Yo, what's going on? This is Larry. Coming to you for the summer edition of my little sports thing that I do. Um, as we all know that follow the world of sports, there has been a lot of activity this summer. We had the NFL lockout, which just ended, thank God. We have the NBA lockout, which is going on right now. We have the U.S. women coming up short in the World Cup to Japan. What else do we have right now? We got people retiring. Yao Ming having to retire. Shaq has retired. The Mavericks is coming off winning the NBA championship. I mean, there's a lot that's going on in sports off season. I mean, baseball is just kicking it into gear. The Pirates are where nobody expected them to be. I mean, there's a lot of things going on in the world of sports right now. But right now, I'm gonna give you my little take on the NFL lockout and how it only helped the NFL in terms of everything that's just transpired. Um, when you look at the NFL lockout as it just preceded us, I mean, it's not like it really changed up anything NFL related. All year round, ESPN covers the NFL during the off season, during the regular season, during the postseason, whatever. There's always something going on with the NFL that the ESPN talks about, and with that, people were just getting interested into seeing when exactly the lockout was going to end. It brings intrigue. Most people that probably didn't follow like the NFL as close as it did probably picked up on more about what the NFL is about now. So that brings in new fans. And then when you look at the landscape of this salary cap system that they have in place where teams have to spend 89% per team worth the total salary cap, it pretty much levels out the playing field for anybody to compete. You'll probably have teams having to get rid of marquee free agents, marquee players to become free agents to sign elsewhere. You'll probably have some teams who are players, I should say, who are willing to renegotiate with their teams or restructure their contract so they'll be able to stay with the team. It'll be real interesting to see what happens. But the main thing is, people always say, well, it makes the players look greedy, it makes the owners look greedy and all that. The only thing the NFL lockout did was attract interest into the business world of what the NFL is. I mean, most people who may not know what a salary cap system is or player contracts or how much rookies are getting paid or any of that stuff right there, they'll be into it now. And then they'll understand how things will balance themselves out over the course of time on how this will all play out with the NFL. I mean, when you look at teams like Dallas, teams like Baltimore, teams like the Patriots, you know, these are teams right now that are over the new salary cap that we have. And you got to remember 2010, it was an uncapped year. So this leads to a level playing field for all teams because they have to spend X amount of money in order to end this new collective bargaining agreement that just got in place. So you're going to see a lot of players getting released out of contracts or released by teams. I mean, every player that's in a contract, they get some like cut of that money, but they don't get as much as they normally would. And certain teams like the Buccaneers, who are like tremendously under the limit. Them, the Bengals, the Bears. These teams have cap space to sign free agents to come in to their team. And when you look at a team like the Bucks, 10-6 last year, need a couple players to put them over the edge. You can look at what they can go out and get with the Nnamdi Asomugha perhaps. If Reggie Bush gets released, they can go out and probably get him to add some speed to go with the Garrett Blunt in the backfield. There's a lot of things that go on that can happen. You look at where players like Donovan McNabb might end up, where Matt Hasselbeck may end up. There are talks about teams getting rid of certain players so other players can finally start to flourish out for riding the bench or what have you. So you look at teams who have like quarterbacks waiting in the wings, Denver being the prime example. There's rumors about Kyle Orton being traded. You look at players who supposedly were supposed to get their start. Kevin Cobb being the main example. They're talking about him going to Arizona. So it's a lot of different aspects that are taking shape in the NFL that I believe with this new system could possibly be one. This NFL season to me will probably equal the excitement that we just had with this past NBA season, where every team you didn't know who was gonna be who. Everybody picked the Heat to win. Everybody said the Lakers were gonna go back. But then you look at how it played out, and you had the Mavericks coming out of nowhere, sweeping LA, and just the excitement level, the ratings, and all that stuff that happened in the NBA. I see that same thing happening with the NFL this year. There's no reason that it shouldn't happen. When you look at how this system has played out, how these players will go to different situations, have to deal with new things, how rookies will have to get paid now. It's no longer those $80 million quarterbacks that didn't prove anything. These guys are actually going to get at the most a $20 million contract, and that's for a #1 overall pick. So these are the things that I think will ultimately help the NFL, not only financially, but it'll also have teams drafting smarter, I believe, because before it was like you would have a team try to trade out of a spot because they didn't want to have to pay a certain player this amount of money because they were just the best player on the board, and then you go out and get like a lower tier player in the draft and you pick him with a #1 overall pick. You got to give him #1 overall money. Well, that's not going to be the case anymore. So I think that will help out in terms of players who haven't really proven themselves yet, and also it also sets up probably the most competitive year, one of the most competitive years we'll probably see in the NFL in a long time. So I think that this lockout will only help the NFL out in the long run with garnering new fans, entering into a new era of football as we prepare for this next decade of football. It's going to be real interesting to see how everything plays out. Now, while one lockout is over, there's another one that's pretty much not looking as promising as the NFL lockout did in terms of work stoppage. And that will be the NBA lockout. And with this is gonna hurt. I think the biggest losers, if this does play out and like we lose a season of NBA basketball, this will only hurt the owners more than anything else. For the simple fact, players can go overseas and play and get money if that's really like a necessity for them. But when you look at how NBA players are paid, I mean, these are, if I'm not mistaken, like the second highest paid players after I'm not even gonna say that. I think that the NBA players are probably the highest paid players in all of sports, because only in baseball only certain players get the big money, and most of those are mainly pitchers. But in the NBA, you got players who are getting 18 million, 19 million a year, and some of these guys don't deserve the money. Look at Michael Redd is a prime example. Man has missed the past 3 years with a bum knee and was getting paid 14, 16, 17 million dollars for each year that he was out. I mean, it's not to say that it's his fault that he's hurt, but there is a serious issue with the NBA that the players need to look at. I mean, players want this, the owners want a hard cap, which I can agree with, and players don't want to give that up because they're so used to this luxurious lifestyle that's presented to them with these contracts that these owners are giving out. I mean, the owners are to blame for giving out these contracts, but at the same time, when you figure you're paying a guy $19 million just to sit on the bench, or you're paying a guy $18 million who hasn't produced the way he wanted to. Orlando is a prime example where we just had Rashard Lewis. And that's not only Orlando. You look at the landscape of things. Players will have like one good like outing. Like, who was it a while ago? Jerome James, when he played for the Seattle Sonics, this was way like when they were in the playoffs last. He played a good playoff series, and the Knicks went out and signed him to a contract, but we never heard from him again. They gave him a contract worth almost $40 million, if I'm not mistaken. And this man is sitting around just making $5-6 million a year and not even seeing the court time. I mean, the owners are to blame for that because, I mean, the GMs, they go out, they the ones who find these players, put them on the teams to think that they can do this, that. But it's the owners who have to pay these players. So if you want to eliminate these bad contracts, you either get smarter GMs like the ones we have in Oklahoma City, like the ones we had in Portland who they let go. Teams that build. Look at what Memphis has done this past season with building up a team with Mike Conley. They bring in Zach Randolph with Mark Gasol and OJ Mayo all finally coming together. I mean, you can build a team in a small market and still be successful. I mean, I think if bigger name cities followed the small league example, I mean, we probably wouldn't have this problem that we're having right now. But those are the owners who know what they have to spend in order to keep a team afloat in this profession that they're in. And with that being said, it's really about who wants to make their team competitive in a smart way. I mean, Oklahoma City came out of nowhere last year. It was Memphis this past season. I would probably predict that if there is a season, it'll be Golden State this year. But the main thing that I think the NBA lockout will do, if the season is lost, I mean, sure, it'd be bad for some basketball fans, but this would be great for the college basketball scene. It's already shown what it can do when you look at Harrison Barnes going back for another year, Jared Sullinger going back for another year. These are guys being billed as top players coming out to enter the NBA draft, and with the uncertainty surrounding the NBA, they decided to stay for a while. I mean, with a season lost, you can probably expect maybe you won't have maybe one and done players like Austin Rivers coming out right now. What is it? It's I can't think of his name right now. It's another guy. It's another point guard. Surprisingly, going to play for John Calipari in Kentucky. I mean, it's not surprising that there's a reason that there is a one and done rule, and the reason behind it is not a smart one. The NBA doesn't want players jumping straight from high school to the NBA. They want them to go to college, but it hurts the college game because you only have guys going for 1 year, and it's probably the most ridiculous rule in all of sports that I've ever heard of in my life. I mean, I don't know the rules of every sports, but the ones that I do know, this is probably one of the dumbest. I mean, you're going to say that a player can't come out after 1 year removed from high school, or he's at least 19 years old. It's like, really, it makes no sense. You're only hurting a traditional game in which players give their all, players give their hearts into. College basketball is probably one of the more passionate games, just like all college sports. They're doing it for the love of the game, and it seems like most people only watch college basketball in March. And even though that's when the games really count, there are non-conference games that go on that shape up that bring you some surprising games that people don't really know about, because they're like, well, there's no point in watching this game. This team isn't going to be put together for the long run, so there's no point in me really watching the game. But there are reasons to watch the game. That's why I believe that if the NBA does lose this season, you will actually see more players like wising up to say, hey, you know what? Let's stay in school for maybe 2 years, maybe 3 years. Try to win not only one championship, but just try to bring 2 titles here. I mean, it's basically like a waste of time for these kids. It's like these kids are like wasting a year of their life, because some of them may go back to college, some of them may not, because their dream is to ultimately go to the NBA. But if you're gonna have a rule like that, I say you put it to where they can't, if they go to college, they can't come to the NBA until after their junior year. I mean, 3 years at least in school, because not only are there guys who can get their educations, but there's also guys who could learn a lot from these coaches in the college basketball ranks, because it's in the college game where these players learn to become real basketball players, because this is where the learning process comes in. High school, the reason you go to these top schools and after high school is because you're the best player amongst a bunch of kids. You're the man amongst boys in high school. And then once you get to college, you have players that are seemingly on the same level as you, depending on the conference play that you're in. And you have to compete with that on a night in, night out basis. And once you get to the NBA, it's like, okay, these guys have been doing this for some years. I have to come in here and play hard. And with the one and done rule, I mean, sure, you have some players who will come out and they'll probably be like the most electric thing out there, but they're gonna struggle. Derrick Rose did it his first year. John Wall did it this past year. High turnover rate. He couldn't take care of the ball. Sure, he had the assist numbers, but his turnovers are almost as equal to his assists on a nightly basis. So when you look at it like that, who else came out after 1 year? I mean, look at like a player like Kyrie Irving. Like, if this lockout blocks out a season, it cancels a whole season, Kyrie Irving could have stayed in school. You have guys like, who else? I think Kemba Walker was a senior, if I'm not mistaken, or he was a junior. He could have stayed another year. Brandon Knight could have stayed another year. These guys in Europe, I mean, they want to get, sure, you get their draft rights for these European players, but if they don't sign the contract and they ultimately decide that they want to stay overseas, I mean, that's on them. It's not like you can force them, especially if they're already in contract. Derek Williams, he could have stayed. He was only a junior. I mean, these guys could have stayed, got them an extra year of school, not only school, but also an extra year of good basketball tutelage from some of these coaches that's in the college ranks. I mean, you had Gary Williams, who just retired, and and it's kind of sad because Gary Williams was one of the better teachers that we had in the college basketball game, and yet it was always undershadowed by the fact that he didn't recruit the top players. But when you look at the players that have come from Maryland or that have played at Maryland, those are good, skilled players that end up translating to the NBA game. And it seems like with this rule that they have, a lot of players, especially these rookies that just came in this year, if they were underclassmen, they just lost out on another year that they could have had learning from some of the best coaches and honing their skills in game situations. I mean, sure, you have an off-season workout plan, but off-season workouts isn't the same as in-game situations where you actually get into a game, real game situations where something is on the line on a night in, night out basis. It's not going to happen like that. So when you look at it like that, it's very simple to see that this will help out the college basketball game, especially depending on what they decide to do with the one and done rule, whether or not they want to eliminate it or not. Because I feel if a player decides to go to school, it should be for the right reasons. He shouldn't just go just so he can make that immediate jump after school to go to the NBA. He should want to legitimately go to school and play basketball and get an education. Because after all, it is a free ride scholarship for you to go, not only have a room paid for, not only for you to get your education, but you're also doing something that you love. So with these guys going in there, and like I said, those coaches in college are there to teach. It seems like the coaches in the NBA, the professionals, they're there to manage teams, keep egos in check. Where in college basketball, if you're the best player, you're going to play. And you're going to play with all your heart, because you know on any given night that nothing's guaranteed. So you can have these guys come in, if they do get hurt, they have an education to fall back on. And it's really sad that it has to come to something like this in order for the college basketball game to perhaps get back put into national prominence or what have you. But at the same time, I feel that if this does take place the way that it should, um, if there is a lockout in the NBA that lasts and cancels a season, college basketball, I mean, people will have to fill that void, that basketball void, and the only void that they'll have to fill is through the college game. I mean, right now we're watching the WNBA, but people say basketball is basketball, but there's something missing when you're watching the WNBA compared to the men's game. I mean, not to knock the WNBA. I mean, I watch the WNBA, but if you ask me right now who are the top teams in the WNBA, I couldn't tell you. I just watch it because it's basketball. It's filling the void. So there has to be either something that is dramatically done with this little one and done rule. These players have to realize that they're getting paid better than most athletes anywhere in sports, and that these owners, they're, even though people say the owners may be getting greedy and stuff, they're owners for a reason. These guys are billionaire owners. I mean, if you lock them out, not only do they may lose money from like income on games and stuff, but they don't have to pay the players. So how much money do they actually lose if you have a team with a $90 million payroll like the Magic, like the Lakers? They don't have to shell out that $90 million that year. They have to pay their staff maybe, but what are they paying their staff for? Nothing. So sure, these players are under contract and everything, but they don't have to pay them if they're not playing. And if they're not playing, then these players, they can either go find them another job somewhere, or they can go overseas. I mean, it's all up to them. But I think the NBA lockout is going to really damage the upcoming season. I mean, I would rather see a full 82 game season than a shortened 50 game season. It makes no sense to me, especially considering the fact that the All-Star game is supposed to be here in Orlando. I mean, it would really, I mean, it's something I was looking forward to, but in all honesty, you look at not only what it would do with the teams and the owners, but what it does with these free agents that's could possibly like leave to go elsewhere. You talk about Darren Williams, you talk about the Chris Paul, the Dwight Howards, all these guys with these options in their contracts to whether or not they will stay or whether they'll go. It's going to be a real interesting thing to see how this all plays out. It is what it is. There's nothing we can do about it. We as fans can only sit back, watch, and hope that things play out for the better. But as of right now, it's not looking too good in the NBA. We have baseball the rest of this season. Hopefully the Pirates make the playoffs. It's one of those teams where if you know baseball, you know how teams are being built, and you knew that the Pirates were one of those teams that over time, just like the Rays a couple years back, just like the Tigers a few years back, that with that unit that grows together, they could actually end up winning together, and it's come together this year. So I really hope that the Pirates do make the playoffs this year. You got Albert Pujols' free agency coming up. That's going to be a big off-season thing. Maybe that'll probably be like the only thing we have to look forward to come the fall outside of football is baseball free agency. Who knows? But football is back. I'm glad that that's going, that lockout is over with. Titans got Jake Locker. There are rumors that McNabb can come into town. It's going to be real interesting to see what my Titans do. My Raiders, we lost Asamoah. There's talks about Asamoah going to the Jets, which I would hate but love to see. This is gonna be a great NFL season coming up. I can't wait. I think it's gonna probably be one of the more exciting seasons. I'm actually looking forward to watching a preseason football game because you know some of these players, they may get extended minutes in preseason games. Usually you have a guy come in, play like 2 or 3 series, and then you won't see him the rest of the game. I think the players will actually use this time to actually play more during the preseason and actually get some work in and to get in game shape. Because sure, they have their own little off-season workout regimens or what have you, but hey, nothing compares to real game situations. So I'm Larry Jenkins. If you have anything you want to add to it, leave a comment. If you want to post a video response, go ahead. But this is my take on the two biggest stories in the summer so far, and hopefully the NBA lockout will get resolved so we can have our full plate, if you will, come the fall. Peace.